anything to do with identity, which is anything that you're consciously and unconsciously using as a framework to define yourself. All of these containers are fundamentally limiting. But she's saying, think about it. If you're going to liberate your heart song so that you sing freely from that place of your essence and from your truth in this moment, there's a lot of liberating that needs to happen before that channel is actually open and free. And a lot of that has to do with these particular containers. Hello everyone, welcome to Soul Weather, your mid-month energy check-in. I'm Dany Lyne. I'm an intuitive, and for the last 20 years I've been co-creating wellness and aligned manifestation with folks worldwide, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. In this series, I'm going to tap us into the main energy through line so that we can alchemize the expansions and the contractions of the life force into our sacred flow. Join my YouTube channel to get your mid-month energy check-in. Hello to all of you, welcome, and a very rainy morning in Bali. Welcome to mid-June soul weather. We're close to solstice. So in and of itself, that energy is already present. And so we are still in the wood element. The wood element is still guiding our journey. And yet, as we found out in the Energy Collective at the transmission last week, we are healing the heart in the wood element. And the heart is the fire element, and that's where we're heading when we transfer over to summer. I was channeling Sri Yukteswar and Anandamayi last week when that particular message was coming through, and so we're carrying forward with Swami Sri Yukteswar, who is back, which is wonderful, and joining forces with Ma for this message. And just before I start, I'll just mention that for an in-depth look at the solstice transition between wood and fire, just tune in to my elemental seasons. And that's going to be filmed next week and then will be available on YouTube at the solstice. So there'll be more juicy details about that transition in that particular environment. But for now, let's see how we're doing here energetically. They're both piping in a continuation and a fleshing out of this business of heart healing within the environment and influence of the wood teacher. And they both said, we want to go back to when we talked about the kind of elbowing that we're doing in terms relationally in all our different relationships. So what I'm getting here in terms of as we move forward is there's a lot of repositioning ourselves in the world so that we're more apt and capable of being in the now and meeting the isness of the now. So what they're talking about is that anything to do with identity, which is anything that you're consciously and unconsciously using as a framework to define yourself. Start with male, female, or whatever gender you're identifying at, and then go into daughter, son, mother, widower, widow, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, uncle, niece, the whole 9 yards. All of that, and including 60, 70, 80, whatever age you're at, all of these containers are fundamentally limiting. And they're saying they're causing generally a lot of stress, because with those identities and those constructs and those containers come expectations, your own and the expectations of others. That will apply also to culture, right? And social, geopolitical containers as well. They're saying fundamentally, all these containers are in and of themselves a product of duality and a product of polarization. So you're not only the son, you're the firstborn or something, right? And from the firstborn, so there's layers and layers of expectations that come with these packages that are saying right now, as we heal the heart, we're healing the heart of the illusions that these containers have come to mean to us and what they mean to others. So they're talking about healing from systemic, if you want, heart wounding that will then feed into your very personal stories and personal heart wounds as well. So Maya is saying that it's really worth giving it a shot, even if it creates some disorientation and some anxiety and fear of aloneness, or fear, right? Whatever fears that may trigger. Maya is saying we're encouraging you to do this because ultimately, if you embrace the kind of melting down of those containers, you're actually in the end going to experience less fear than what the containers in themselves generate in terms of fear and anxiety and trepidation and confusion. Yeah, so Maya is saying we're cheering you on to come into that aspect of the heart, which is beyond duality. So, she's saying, like in Dany's language, the way apparently I've expressed this often is sort of looking at the wounding in the biological heart versus and moving the focus on the biological heart. And if you want those cramps that we have in the heart to the heart chakra so that we can access our heart of hearts, which will then, of course, get us to that space of oneness. But she's saying what it's going to get you to is a fundamental ecology of respect. Not respect for someone because they're your mother or father, or respect for you because you're their firstborn or whatever. It's going to be respect, capital R, that's unconditional. Because she's saying with all of those containers come these unbelievable conditions that are hardwired in, create this, Stephanie was calling it a stamp this week, right? Everything that creates that stamp will ultimately lead to its conditional love and its conditional respect. And there are always conditions. You know, I'm reminded of working with a widow or a widower at the time where they realize they're allowed to have another relationship after the passing of their partner, for instance. Right? We're talking about that level of where there's respect for the partner while they were alive, and respect in the sense of where they're at in their transition without a body, but also profound respect of your aliveness and your presence in the now. And what does that mean to you to be present fully so that you're always meeting life fully? They're both talking at the same time now in a coordinated voice. And they're saying that these containers create a subset of, if you want, laws And that subset of laws can interfere with the fundamental connection to the flow of life itself, the logic of life itself, and the logic unfolding in the present moment for you at this time. So Maya is saying, you know, we're moving toward the fire season, towards the heart, and toward what we refer to in our community as the heart song. But she's saying, think about it. If you're going to liberate your heart song so that you sing freely from that place of your essence and from your truth in this moment, there's a lot of liberating that needs to happen before that channel is actually open and free. And a lot of that has to do with these particular containers and ultimately the limitations of these containers. As we move toward our heart song, we're actually moving in the direction of, to our egoic mind, what is unimaginable. The possibilities and your potential and your voice and your expression in the world is far vaster than what you can imagine using the template, if you want, of the past and the templates that you've inherited. So if you're functioning within that inherited soup, as we were talking with Leslie, this inherited soup, you're fundamentally limiting the possibilities of the now and the possibilities moving into the now of tomorrow, for instance. So they're saying it's tricky because a lot of these containers we've associated with our sense of safety. And this is where the fear factor comes in. She's saying, right, it's that thing of saying what's familiar feels safe. But we all know in therapy, when we marry, if we've had a father that was confused and then we marry, right, someone who's resembles the father, there was familiarity there, but it didn't exactly add up to a recipe, right, for an expansive relationship and a trustworthy partner often at the time, if you want, right? If you're repeating it's that whole thing of repeating the patterns. It's familiar. And the familiar in general exists within the network and the soup of conditionality. So if you're going to move forward, right, into this fire season with that sense of expansiveness and giving space to your heart song, you're also going to elbow your way out, right, of these frameworks and wiggle your way out of your own notion of what you think is safe and what safety actually is. They're showing me that, in a sense, a lot of our notions of safety relate to the energy of codependence in all sorts of different environments. Right? We can become codependent within our professional environments and, of course, in our relationships. Ultimately, what we're talking about is deconstructing the mechanism of codependence so that then you can be interdependent with the flow of life itself, which will include all living beings, not just the ecology of what you have populated your world with in terms of what's familiar. Mai is speaking just for a second here on her own, and she's saying the prayer for you here, and the hope and the encouragement and the energy that's flowing is aiming toward the energy of discovery. She's saying this heart season will be one where there are discoveries, but to set yourself up, to position yourself so that these discoveries and the discovery mood, right, is available to you, you need to open up the windows and doors to let that in, to let the new, to let the unexpected, to let the unknown in. And she's saying it's only unknown to your ego and to your personality, if you want. It's not unknown within your heart of hearts. So even the notion of unknown is a perception, because what you're moving toward is what in your heart of hearts you know deep, deep, deep within yourself. And she's saying with the energy of discovery, she's really talking about the energy of celebration also. Celebrating yourself, celebrating the people around you, and celebrating the people and the phenomenal world in all of its vastness, and which opens up possibilities for engagements and new relationships, interweaving with communities rather than being codependent in a very selective way. So it's like an interweaving and just feeling those roots moving into the earth and crisscrossing with other roots and creating strong fabrics. And those fabrics will lead to shared discovery, but also shared project, shared enthusiasm, and shared heart songs that build in terms of potency in the world to bring goodness, your goodness in the world, but also the goodness of others in the world. Sri Yukteswar is saying that it's ultimately a profound celebration of the energy of life itself and a profound respect for that, the impulses and the energy and the flow that's inherent in this magic, the magic show, if you want, of this life. He's saying you're all magic wands and you don't necessarily know it. So he's speaking, right, of honoring each individual as a magic wand. And he's showing me that, he's reminding me that in the lifetime that I'm connecting to, he had a school, and he worked a lot with children. And he was saying each one of these children was a magic wand. And my job was to light up the consciousness so that each child understood themselves as a magic wand. So he's saying, in a sense, we have the power to do that for ourselves, to witness ourselves in that way. He's saying, of course, in meditation, you have a bit more access to that zone and to that spark. But he's saying that ultimately what we're talking about, and in terms of heart song and the particular flavor of heart song expression that's coming up in the fire season, are heart songs that light each other up. We need people to light each other up so that the potency of good and transformation of the world is amplified, and it becomes at a certain point exponential. He's saying we've experienced how contagious fear is. And he's saying what we're trying to do here and what we're encouraging you to do is to understand that this spark on our magic wands is even more contagious, even more powerful, and even more interdependent than we can even begin to imagine. So he says, if you think of the logic of life itself and how bugs, and viruses and what have you, right, reproduce and do their stuff, he's saying that's not just true of the negative. It's true of the positive. It's true of the energy that is ultimately profoundly respectful and profoundly celebratory and profoundly compassionate. And ultimately, don't underestimate basically the power of compassion, the power of that goodness in your heart, that you can really align with something that's actually much more potent and much more all-encompassing than even the experience of fear. He's saying most of you have experienced, right, the compelling nature of panic attacks and how, right, all-encompassing the experience can be. And he says that ultimately this magic wand, when it lights up, it'll be even more powerful than what you experienced in a moment like that of a panic attack. Except, right, it's going to be joy and celebration and a sense of connection that's going to light up rather than disconnection. So they're both speaking now, and they're saying that don't get fooled by looking at the polarization in the world and thinking, the big problem of polarization is out there. They're saying it's like polarization itself is coming to a head. And so it's going to come to a head in you. It's going to come to a head in your communities, in your relationships. So in your homes, in your work environments, it's just coming to a head, and meet it everywhere. And meet, most importantly, the piece that you can most shift and engage with is how you engage with polarization from 1 minute to the next. So there's definitely, when I'm connecting to both of them, they're very spunky this morning. So they're more spunky than usual. So there is a sense of excitement. They're both going, ooh, this is like getting really interesting here, right? It's always interesting to them. But, it's that kind of like, ooh, this is really like, the hands are in the clay and that clay can transform. Like there's a malleability and an enthusiasm for that malleability. And an enthusiasm and a trust in people's ability to connect with their heart fully. Yeah, Sri Yukteswar is saying when he was a teacher, it's like, he says it's like exam time is coming, and of course all the kids are freaking out. But he's saying, there's that sense as the teacher to know that they're going to be fine. And then he said, his job was to also know who wouldn't be fine and to support them during this time leading up to the exam and during the exams. So he's saying, it's like, there'll be parts of you that are like, those kids who are just, you know, they've studied all year, they're good, they're solid, they're a bit nervous, but it's going to be okay. And then there's parts of you who are like those children who are like, they're tripping up on certain things. But then what do, right? You don't just threaten them with the exam. You show up and you support and you mentor and you encourage and you figure out what the pieces are and the approach so that the child can come in, that aspect of self can come into a place of self-confidence and, you know, a place of trusting that their mind and their being has the capacity. They just have to figure out their path to that capacity, which might be different than for someone else. So he's saying, like every good teacher, right, in that moment when you're supporting a child, when, you know, there's that anticipation of exams, he says you have to be really creative because the time is shorter, and so with that there's a bit more pressure for a real creative attempt at opening the doors that are there to be opened. And she suddenly they came together again, is they're saying that the fundamental ingredient in that is the love and respect of that child or that part of the self, right? That fundamental belief in them, that trust, that seeing through to the innate capacity that's there, the innate goodness that's there. There's nothing wrong with that child. You just have to figure out how to find the pathway to light up the wand and to create for the flow of that spark. So the energy they're both infusing into us right now is one of absolute trust and enthusiasm in our capacity to meet this energy, to meet this part of us that is that magic wand. And the work right now is to really look at whatever's in your way of you being a compassionate witness to your own magic. And of course, with all of this, this is all the ageism, ableism, racism, homophobia, all those isms, and sexism and what have you. You can imagine that that is all part of this equation. This is a massive attempt and energy that's there to dismantle, not just at an organizational level where these energies are, but whatever part of this we've internalized. And to help others also release themselves from any internalization of these systemic forms of limiting beliefs and ultimately disrespect. So that's what they mean by it's coming to a head, and it needs to come to a head. So it needs to come to a head within us to release ourselves ultimately from unconscious biases would be also the language that we can use here. So in the weeks leading up to the solstice, and even they're saying even as we transition into the fire season, so after June 21st, this is all still going to be playing because these are very big pieces. But, trust that we're at this moment because of everything that preceded, right? The way the fall worked out, the way the winter energy and the water energy was working on us. right? And then how the wood has been working on us. So this is all a cumulative impact here. And knowing that as we keep digging through this work through the wood teacher, that what's coming, right, is literally the spark, the fire element. And it's just making sure our magic wand isn't sopping wet when the flame comes, basically. I mean, the vision they're sharing with me right now, I was just seeing Sri Yukteswar looking at all the children with so much love and so much trust in their capacity and, and so much interest. And so they're sharing with us the interest that the Ascended Masters have and the level of encouragement and support and buoyancy that is being offered to us right now. And so whenever you're wobbling or wavering, it's just try to, in your meditations or walks in the woods or your long baths or whatever it is that helps you find that place where you can feel that sense of shared experience and presence, and also love for all the children in the world. Right? That as a really good teacher would look at all their students. Like, that's the energy that I'm getting. And so you yourself look at, if you are a teacher, for instance, look at embodying that, but embody that as a parent, embody that as a friend, embody that as a lover, embody that as a wife, husband, partner, whatever it is embody that enthusiasm for and trust in people's capacity, basically. And encourage each other. They're saying encourage, encourage, encourage each other. Encourage yourself, encourage others. Yeah. So with much love and gratitude, thank you, Sri Yukteswar, thank you, Ma. And I thank you for your trust, and thank you for that image of the magic wand. I've never, that's not a particular image that's been shared with me before, and I'm grateful for it, because I really feel the potency of that magic wand image, that it's right there. It just needs that boom, and then so much lights up. So thank you.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.